Hello. There's been a lot happening in the last week. This is last Friday of August, so a lot has happened, and there's a lot to comment upon. But the thing really that should be commented upon, unfortunately, as there are other stories, is the whole Rotherham scandal, or outrage even you could call it, or atrocity perhaps. But over the last couple of days, there's been plenty of information about this in the papers and the media. In the town of Rotherham in Yorkshire, over 1,400, and some say that's just the tip of the iceberg, vulnerable young children and youth have been systematically abused sexually by paedophile gangs, this time consisting of men of Pakistani and Kashmiri origin. The vast majority of the children as well, though not all, but the vast majority were of white British origin. Police and social services and the Labour Council and establishment all knew that this was going on for 16 years plus. And this is not a historic case, as it was going on until 2013. And I don't see why it's still not going on now, as it hasn't really been dealt with. And where do you start to comment upon something like this? I've already talked about the Westminster paedophiles, but this is even more disturbing because it's only moderately, well, it's one small town in Yorkshire, is Rotherham. 3 reports were issued by people on the lower echelons of the social services about these abuses over the last 12 years, and all were simply binned and probably shelved by the authorities. And just one example of all this, perhaps the best known public one at the moment, is the Crime Commissioner on 85,000 per annum, Mr. Sean Wright, who claims that he wasn't aware of the scale of it. So how many kids is it right to abuse then? 100, 200, 1,000 before any action is taken? So he knew about this. All the authorities knew about it and they did nothing. And so far, Mr. Wright, in a display of overwhelming arrogance, which is all you can expect from these people, has refused to step down. Surely his days are numbered. I'd be surprised to see him in his position this time next week. But if he is, it's up to the people of Rotherham to take to the streets and remain there until if he refuses to budge. It's the only thing that they can do. But what of the highly paid people at the top who all knew? They're all sitting in comfortable jobs still, all equally guilty. At the very least, they should be, all of them, fired without compensation from their jobs for willful negligence and culpability, at the very least. So what points can we make about this, apart from the obvious? First of all, the reason I'm so angry about it, and take it personally, is that the victims were from my class, as they inevitably are. We are worth nothing to them, except as cheap labour and objects to be used, abused, and then discarded. This just goes to show the total moral bankruptcy of the ruling Labour Party in Rotherham. They knew but did nothing, and apart from 5 men prosecuted and jailed, and one of them has been released and walking around, nothing has been done apart from the criminalisation of the kids who've been arrested for drunken behaviour, antisocial behaviour and possession of small amounts of cannabis. Nothing's been done for them at all. No support. Instead of support, they get criminal records and their lives ruined forever. And what did this abuse consist of? It wasn't just something like touching up, which is bad enough. It's on the same scale and intensity, as far as I'm concerned, as the atrocities that occurred in the Democratic Republic of Congo and in Bosnia during the Civil War. Gang rapes to discipline the children, brutal violence, beatings, dousing with petrol, filming the rapes to blackmail the kids, bricks thrown through the windows of their parents if their parents objected to it. When they went to the authorities, the parents, they were ignored, and the children were also trafficked to other towns. This is something highly organised with lots of people involved, but, as I say, completely and absolutely ignored. And one of the reasons for this cover-up, or so-called reasons, is, they say, political correctness, because of the ethnic origin of the perpetrators, a kind of reverse racism. If you have a racist society, then obviously you're going to get reverse racism, usually done by liberals and lefties, and this is a prime example of it. It's simply a case of don't rock the boat and it might go away. Such is this total and absolute moral bankruptcy of the system in the 21st century. And what was the community that these rapists and abusers came from? It must have been fairly well known in general, but again ignored and swept under the carpet. Why did this happen? Why was it allowed to happen? There's a variety of causes. Does it have anything to do with their religion, Islam? I don't think it's a major factor, but in an atmosphere of formal sexual repression and extreme authoritarianism, you're bound to get more sexual crimes than you would under other circumstances. Because there's no healthy outlook for sexuality except abuse. And this case is a very fine example of this. It pains me to say all this, but it has to be said. This is Britain in 2014, not 1814 or even 1914. It's getting worse on all levels. Misery, exploitation, sexual abuse, poverty, the rich getting richer, the state becoming more powerful, intrusive, the ruling class is more vicious and arrogant. And we're just taking it without doing anything about it, apart from a few ineffectual and feeble protests. One wonders also how the women and girls of this Pakistani Kashmiri community are treated. I would imagine, from experience of other communities, there was and is a great deal of domestic violence, control, sexual abuse as well, all ignored. Those courageous enough from those communities to object and raise the issue are treated just the same, isolated, assaulted. And also there was youths involved in this as well as adults. This isn't just like dirty men, it's dirty adults as well. Dirty youths as well. It's disgusting. This is how degenerate the whole thing has become. There's very other deeply held things that are never talked about within these communities. I'm just talking about this community, but all other communities have their same dirty and dark secrets, as we well know. What about the secret plural marriages, for example? Honour killings. And the sexual abuse of young girls by their close relatives. This is never talked about, well, apart from the honour killings, and that's only talked about when it reaches the headlines of the newspapers and someone sentenced to life imprisonment again. The community itself has got to face up to this and deal with it themselves, because obviously we can't, and certainly the authorities can't. They actually encourage it by ignoring it. And that starts at the grassroots, with the ordinary people that have to come out on the streets. If they don't, then people like the EDL will have a try, and we all know what motivates them. And as with the Pakistani and Kashmiri communities in Rotherham, we are all culpable if we do nothing. As I keep saying time and time again, our only recourse now is the streets. Let all the communities join together to deal with this on a grassroots level. No to isolation, no to ghettoisation, no to ignoring unpleasant truths, and to hell with their cover-ups and hypocritical morality, the Rotherham case being merely one of dozens, such as, for example, for the Westminster paedophile scandals, with the top people involved. And with that, so far, not one MP, member of the House of Lords, or the royal family, who are all involved, have been publicly named and shamed, despite all the lurid headlines over the last couple of months. Corruption, abuse from top to bottom. That's all we have, and only we can deal with it. As I say, as messy and unpleasant as it may be, whatever happens, only we can deal with it, because if we don't, it's going to continue happening, it's going to get worse. We simply cannot allow this state of affairs to continue. Ignore it and it becomes worse, as I said. Just think of all those young lives that have so far been destroyed. Not only must the victims come forward, they must come together and get out onto the streets in rage, anger and protest and do something from all the communities. We'll join up with them, to be sure. Everybody, every right-minded person will. And so to hell with the establishment and its sick morality. Where's our uprising? Where's our revolution? It's the only thing that can stop this. I'd like to make one other brief point. As anarchists, of course, we're against the justice system as it stands, their system, their laws, their courts, their police and their prisons, which are just aimed to repress us. But in no way should we allow rapists, paedophiles, serial killers to exist amongst us, whoever they are. We don't disapprove of removing them from society. They have automatically given up their right to be in society, as far as I'm concerned. Even in a revolutionary anarchist situation, the fact is that crimes against humanity, as carried out by the Rotherham abusers, would probably be met with summary justice. In other words, put up against the wall and shot as they deserve, not released early to be walking around to continue with their abuses. Remember, we're anarchists and revolutionaries and not bloody, bleeding-hearted liberals. So on that very, very angry vein, I leave you. And remember, unless we do something about it, nobody else is going to do anything about it.